Michael Morales Torres para Lucha Libre Online por primera vez desde Chicago, Illinois, para Lucha Libre Online, representando a TNA Wrestling. Ace Steel llega aquí a la casa de español, señoras y señores. Ace, it's an absolute honor to have you, man. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. And I want to start this interview by discussing the fact that you made your debut inside the pro wrestling industry back in 1991. So
Yes, sir.
33 years after, you have the humbling opportunity of performing once again inside a ring, this time with TNA Wrestling. This is going to be this Thursday live AXS TV or Access TV, also available on YouTube. Your opponent, none other than Frankie Kazarian himself, TNA original. It's going to be a Chicago street fight. Let's go step by step. The first question will be, did you expect your career to take you 33 years after you started inside a TNA ring?
I actually began at TNA, if you didn't know this, in 2002, when they're first at the fairgrounds. So this is just a long time coming. Yeah, the first year TNA was in existence, I had appeared, and then we moved on from there. But no, I did not expect this to happen at this year at any time that I would just be back on a national platform in the ring. Not at all.
So you're Frankie Kazarian, top competitor. He's
Yes, sir.
very wise man inside the ring, very dangerous as well. But it's gonna be a Chicago street fight. It's your type of match. It's gonna be in your city. Cicero Stadium, if I'm not mistaken, was the venue. Beautiful one, by the way. What the fans can expect from this Chicago street fight between you and Frankie this Thursday at Access TV?
A lot of chaos and a good fight, a really hard fight. We don't back down being from Chicago. I think this is a known thing. He disrespected me he disrespected my I'm advising Joe Hendry at this point, and he disrespected Joe Hendry by using a foreign object the other night, and then he needlessly went to put him in his crossface chicken wing submission. So I stopped that, and he pushed me disrespectingly, and he got in my face, and I dropped it, which called for the Chicago street fight. Frankie's no one to mess with, but what I don't think he understands, he doesn't seem to get this, is I'm not going to cower in a corner. I don't know what he thought. I'm not someone to mess with either. I've checked the resume. I'm not afraid of Frankie Kazarian, and the Chicago street fight is my specialty. You want to bring the weapons, we bring the weapons. You want to bring the fight, I'm ready to go.
You mentioned a key name inside this conversation, and we all believe, and I'm pretty sure you do believe as well.
Yes, we do.
Joe Hendry, 6'2", 6'3" in height, like 250 pounds of pure muscle, from Scotland, a singer, an actor, a performer, a guy that's growing like this inside the wrestling industry. How does it feel to have the opportunity to help develop his career and take him to the next level?
It's amazing. Joe and I flocked to each other. It was instantaneous. The minute I saw him, I started with TNA last October at Bound for Glory in Chicago, ironically enough, to start producing his matches and then working with him in ring. He was down at my school, the Foundation of Pro Wrestling, last week before Against All Odds at Chicago. And we worked together on fine-tuning some techniques and just some mechanics of things to get him ready. He's great. He is 100% great. It's great to be with him as an addition to what is happening to him and the exploding things that are going on in his career. Things they just keep stacking up for him. And you got to ride the wave, and it's great to be associated with him. It just so happens that we formed a bond, and myself being his advisor and coach, I just happen to be here when this is happening, and it's phenomenal to watch him grow. And I can't wait to see the things. I mean, we're looking for a world title championship shot, which I have all the confidence that he's going to go ahead and win the TNA World Heavyweight Championship when he's given the opportunity.
That's a solid statement, which leads me to my next point. TNA's roster is incredibly stacked from top to bottom.
Yes, sir.
Incredible staff on the X division, on the Knockouts division, Tag Team division, Top division, every single division, basically. The mid-digital media as well has been pretty much stacked. You've had the opportunity to work with several classes of pro wrestlers from different generations, but this one particularly, TNA is doing an amazing job, specifically after the pandemic. Everything is just going up for them.
Yes.
you being inserted into this picture, having the opportunity to work with this youngsters, young veterans, and established veterans as well, how's been this opportunity for you, sir?
Oh, phenomenal. I love younger talent. I love hungry talent. You know, as a coach, you just want to work with someone that's eager. And the people, you know, especially Joe, who's been doing this for quite a while, but is just finding his niche, and he's finding his stride in this industry. But getting to work with young, hungry talent like Joe, being around people like Rich Swan, the Rascals, Zach Wentz, and Trey Miguel, excuse me, ABC, Zaya Brookside, who's one close to me, because I'm very fond and friends with her father, Robbie Brookside. Let's not, I don't mean to hinder her or anchor her just to Robbie, because she's her own person and she is such a spitfire in there. And speaking of spitfire, you have Danny Luna and Jody Threat. They're insanely cool and they've got energy like you can't believe it. Like, it's just a well-rounded roster of things. And then of course the system has got things in check and they are well-schooled veterans of this industry. It is just really cool to look at and see. Now the Hardy Boys have come in. Like, there are so many good things going on. It's just amazing to see and great to be at TNA at this point.
Back in 2002 in May, you had the opportunity to, as you mentioned earlier, being a part of the first shows at the Fairgrounds for TNA Wrestling. It's been 22 years since that moment. But back then, your partner, if I'm not mistaken, was a former student as well, which is CM Punk.
Yes, indeed.
How was having the opportunity, first of all, of creating him and having him, the opportunity to guide him in his first steps inside the industry, and at the same time, what do you recall of that night that you had the opportunity to be part of that first TNA show?
It's a funny thing because you've always seen the intangible with him from the independents to right up to where he is now. The man speaks to the people, he connects with the people. He always has. That's always been him, even on the independent level. But to see him change his body, his outlook, it's exactly at my school when I do workshops, wherever I go to do a workshop and work with young wrestlers. Every year you should have something different about you, your look, your gear. Like, if it's not hitting yet, like there's got to be something missing. You should be able to look in the mirror and tear yourself down, not to the point where you're in the dumps, but to the point where, why am I not being successful right now? What am I missing? What's not reaching? What's not getting there? Punk's had that intangible with the crowd, but each year, if you look at him when he started, he looked a certain way. He hit the gym. He worked on everything. He worked on his skills, technique. Then from me and from the school we had in Chicago and us being together and honing our craft together, we went in different directions where I would go to Japan and he had gone to Japan as well, but we would go work for Harley Race together. And then he definitely wanted to go to WWE. And that's when he found mentors like Ricky Steamboat. He went through guys like Raven. He worked main event people. That first night in TNA, I dare say at that point, I was a little bit more ready than he was, just because I'd been at the craft a little longer. But the funny thing is, if you look at how long I lasted there, because I didn't exactly know how to work TV, and TNA was in its infancy. They didn't have agents and producers like I am now. I'm a producer where you help young talent. This is how we want to focus the match to be. That didn't exist back then. So when I got an opportunity, as much as you could also say you're in charge of that, the opportunity you have, I needed some mentoring myself, some higher learning, as I call it now, to help me gravitate through those early TV matches and things. Because television wrestling versus independent wrestling is such a different animal. It is night and day. It is night and day. And I've learned so much over these last 5 years in the industry since it's really coming back into it. But that night, I was more ready than Punk would be. The next year, as things would go and Ring of Honor would blow up, Punk and the Raven feud turned into Punker working for TNA at that point, and oddly enough, being in Raven's group. But it's such a change. Then he started catching on more and getting more. But you're only going to get better by, if you're any type of sports player, by playing against someone who's better than you, that's an elder, in your industry. Same with professional wrestling. You're only going to get better by wrestling better people, by working with better people, by being in there and learning and sitting down under under some type of guidance that could lead you there. Us sitting with Harley Race, him giving us his tidbits for things to help craft our career or our matches was such a thing. It's such a huge thing for me. To him, having Ricky Steamboat around us, I'm just, I can keep dropping names everywhere, but we've gotten to work with the best guys in this industry. To myself working with William Regal, like these guys that can just, he's a friend, but he's also, he rides that line of being the mentor too, because I'll turn directly to him and say, I need to go this direction. How do I do this? Or, the influences we had. So I know I went off on a little tangent there. Sorry, but that night was so much different. But to see how he's grown leaps and bounds, I think that taste in TNA took him to the next level to see, okay, I have a goal and I'm going to keep going there. I'm going to find my ways to that.
Interesting enough, TNA's partner with WWE, we've seen what they've been working together.
Yes.
Nobody in a million years expected this happening. Two top competitors working together, 2024? Hell no. And suddenly we saw Jordynne Grace entering the Royal Rumble, and everyone was like, okay, this is huge.
Insane, yeah.
And then we saw her in NXT challenging Roxanne Perez, and it was like, okay, where are we going next? I believe she faced Stevie Turner in her first match. Then Roxanne Perez, now Tatum Paxley coming to TNA changes everything, because that's the first time, if I'm not mistaken, a contractually obliged talent from WWE arrives at TNA Wrestling. You've been good friends with CM Punk specifically, and Punk being in love with pro wrestling, thankfully, because he's a talent that is one of a kind, and seeing his passion for helping other younger talents, such as you're doing right now, it's incredible. Do you think that we may be having the opportunity to see either Punk coming back to TNA, either for a match or sitting back in the backstage area as he did before, to maybe sit down with talent and say, hey, these are the do's and don'ts. This is something that you can do to improve your career. This is the correct pathway. Like, do you see Punk getting involved in TNA one way or another through this partnership?
I think that's an open question. You never know what's going to happen with professional wrestling. It's famously been reported that Punk was backstage quite a few times at TNA, just, visiting with talent. He loves to, I'm not going to say he loves the mentor role. He loves to help if he can. It's just paying it forward. So all the things he's learned. And it's funny, at our age group at this time, a lot of the people that are wrestling were kids when he was on his biggest run, right before he left professional wrestling for quite some time. So what you have when he's dealing with the NXT kids, when he comes down to visit and he says, we go out and we do our thing together just as friends. And he's like, the kids asked me to come by. And I know where his passion is. Because I know the feeling. It's when I would get back from a road loop and go, I've got to go train at the school. And my wife will say, aren't you tired? I'm like, I'm dead tired. But there's kids that want to learn this industry, and I've taken the charge of teaching them. He feels that wholeheartedly. So you never know what's going to happen. I would never rule anything out. I'm not saying that's a definite by any means, but no one thought he'd be back in WWE, did they? No one thought that. And here he is, and he's loving every minute of it.
You have the opportunity as well to be a part of the next tapings for TNA Wrestling. I mean, you guys have been killing it. There's no other way of putting it. It's home run after run, sold out after sold out, and now you guys are heading on June 28th to the 2,300 Arena, Philly, of all places in the world. A very historical arena, and as well the next big event, Slammiversary, of course, the 20th and the 21st of July at the Verdum Auditorium directly in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. What's the message to all the people out there that for some reason are not convinced with TNA, or they're not consuming TNA right now, so they can put their eyes in the product? I mean, it's A Steel, but we also have people like Mike Santana coming in, Latino, Puerto Rican as well. We've had a great Knockouts division, and this is star after star. Brother Nero, of all people,
yes, sir.
In the last show. Like, what's the message to all the fans? There's a lot of Latinos in both places, in Montreal and in Philly. Yeah. What's the message to all of them, sir?
Oh, amigos, come down. Take a look at our product. Do you see what we have? Santana's on fire. Gosh, he hasn't looked better. And I've known him a couple of years. Man, he is on fire. He's hungry. He's in that mindset to ready to go and prosper and do well and just kick ass. I hope you don't mind me saying that.
Yeah.
The 2300 arena, you've got the Hardy Boys there. That's insane. Think of what the 2300 arena means, and they would be Team Extreme at one point in their lives. What are they going to do in that place? That place is an insane venue. Some magic always happens there. Always happens at that place. And you talk about Slammiversary coming up. What you're missing is just some great action. Put some eyes on what we're doing. Excuse me. The industry has never been hotter as a whole, and we are a part of that. We are a part of that. The eyes on when you watch the Rascals, ABC, Zaya Brookside, Steph DeLander, PCO. Like I'm just dropping names all over the place. AJ Francis with the digital media title, and First Class with Rich Swann. I mean, they're money. Their money, quite frankly, their money. The knockouts division. Look at Jordan Grace. Never a more dominant knockouts champion. No offense, Gail Kim. I love you, Gail. Gail could come back at any time. You never know. If I can come back in the ring and fight and get in the face of some guy like Frankie Kazarian, who is a tough competitor, but I guarantee you I'll drop him, as I have already. Somebody like Gail could come back. You never know. I would love to see it. You never know when Tommy Dreamer is going to appear. You never know when a Rhino Gore is coming. Like there's so many great things that can happen at a TNA show. So you're missing out. You're missing out on some great action. It's never been hotter.
I'm going to say this very quick in Spanish so all the Spanish-speaking audience can understand what I'm saying. As anyways, huge events are coming up. Grandes eventos vienen en camino. Hay dos específicamente. Uno en la Arena 2300, la antigua arena de ECW. Mucha historia en el área de Filadelfia. 28 y 29 de junio. No se lo pueden perder por nada del mundo. Y de igual manera, el 20 y 21 de julio, Montreal, Quebec, Canadá, directamente para Slammiversary en el Verdun Auditorium. Dos venues enormes, dos citas enormes. Los Hardy Boys están por ahí, los Nemeth Brothers están por ahí. A-Steel es parte del proceso. Frankie Kazarian, tenemos a Rich Swann, tenemos a AJ Francis, tenemos a Jordan Grace, tenemos a Zaya Brookside, Masha Slamovich, y sigo me voy a cansar. Los boletos están disponibles en tnawrestling.com y todos los jueves, incluyendo a las 8 de la noche por Access TV y por YouTube. No se pueden perder TNA. El producto está sumamente caliente. Se lo llevo diciendo desde el 2020 y 4 años después esto sigue calentando. Así que denle para acá. Hay mucho latino, hay mucho boricua, hay mucho mexicano, hay mucho salvadoreño y colombiano en el área. Saquen un ratito y van a pasarle excelente con TNA Wrestling. Sir, for time purposes, it's been an absolute pleasure and honor to have you as our guest. Thank you so much for your time. Any last words to the fans out there?
Check out TNA, the TNA app. I believe we do have quite a few things floating on YouTube. The Access TV app, TNA app has the vault. You can go back and watch all the great matches from TNA from the past, including when I was there in the early days. Access TV on Thursdays. I'm just going to throw in, I have the Foundation of Pro Wrestling down here in Winter Park, Florida. Might as well throw that in there. We're training prospective students and new people in this industry. We're bringing in international students. Welcome. We have lots of great Puerto Rican talent down here in Florida. And gracias, amigo. Appreciate you.
Where can they contact you for the school, sir? What's the website? What's the phone number?
The website is thefoundationofprowrestling.com. On Instagram, it's the Foundation of Pro Wrestling. And Aces of Steel, at Aces of Steel. On Instagram, we'll link you to everything as well.
Perfect. So if you want to train, if you want to become a pro wrestler, what a best way of doing it than with the guy that trained talent like CM Punk and is building the TNA roster as of right now. Go to A-Steel. He's the guy. Sir, thank you so much for your time. Always wishing you success. And let's wrap this up. Pero en español, fueron A-Steel y Michael Morales Torres para Lucha Libre Online y El Calce, porque en español nadie hace mejor. Será hasta la próxima.